oh, he's not gonna get bit, but still I was like, oh no. And then, out of nowhere, a shovel hits him. Rick, not the legs behind him. And then it turns out it's a kid. And he's like, Daddy, Daddy, I got the son of a bitch. And I'm like, I'm gonna kill him. And this guy comes out of nowhere and he shoots the guy in the distance who was actually a walker that was walking towards Rick. Walker, hence walking. Yeah, and so then he goes over and, like, Rick says Carl to the little boy. And then the dad comes over and he's like, I don't think it's a walker because they never speak. And so then he's like asking all his questions, but then Rick passes out. So they take him inside and they take him to a different house and they tie him to a bed. And he wakes up and they're asking him about the wound. And like, is it a bite? Like, where you bit? Where you bit? Like, tell us what happened. And then he was like, okay, so Rick tells him that he got shot. And, fuck. Yeah, so Rick tells him he got shot. And then so the guy, like, I think it's when he introduces himself, his name is Morgan. And his son's name is Dwayne. And, so they're like, well, we're gonna release you, because he's, like, tied to the bed like this, like, to the bedpost. And they're like, okay, we're gonna release you, but don't try any funny stuff, because if you do, I'm gonna shoot you. And so they let him go, and they're like, okay, come out whenever you're ready. And so he comes out into the dining room, and they have dinner, and that's when Morgan explains the walkers, and, you know, you don't really learn much. All you know is that some virus came out of nowhere, or something, they don't know what, and it started killing people, and it starts with the fever, and you just burn up to the point where you die, and then after a little while you come back. And so that's when Rick pretty much learns kind of what's going on, and then, but they don't really say how it started, why it started. They haven't really got to that yet in the series. So then, I think that it switches, yeah, after they're done eating, like, I think, yeah, then they're talking and then they're making jokes about, like, hey, like, my son and I bet that gunshot wound you got there is from, like, you robbing a bank. And Rick's like, yeah, I robbed a bank, yeah. Like, tough son of a bitch since John Dillinger. And he's like, no, I'm a cop and I got shot in the line of duty. And then he was like, I've been in the hospital this whole time and I just woke up today and I have no idea what's going on. And then you hear a car alarm goes off and they're freaking out. And they're like, it's okay, like, one of them must have bumped into a car alarm. Because apparently that happens a lot, because they just kind of wander around, bumping into shit. And so, one hit the car alarm and the car's gone off. This is like nighttime, and they're more active at night because it's cooler. Because in the heat, you know, that, like, increases decomposition, so they move slower, I guess. So at night, they're quicker. Or more active, whatever. Kitty shush. And so, they're looking out, like, the windows, and Rick, they're just looking out the window, or whatever, and then Dwayne's like, Daddy, she's here, and then Dwayne runs off, and he starts crying, and then Morgan comes over and comforts him, and tells him to cry on the pillow, and it turns out that his wife, Dwayne's mom, she got bit, and actually died in the house that they were in, and so they couldn't bring themselves to put her down, and so she's just kind of let loose outside and wandering around, and she came up to the door and she's looking through the peephole, and Rick's looking through the peephole at her, and she starts to turn the doorknob, which is the creepy doorknob scene in the intro for the show, and then she kind of wanders off, and then it kind of goes into, like, the next day, and then so Rick is all changed, wearing clean clothes, and he goes out, and he kills his first, he kills his first walker. This is his first walker killing. Because there's, like, one, like, sometimes when they get inactive, they just kind of sit there or lay there. Like, they don't really move, they're just, and so one's sitting just, like, by the street, and it notices them coming, so it starts to move and stuff. But then he takes a baseball bat, and he has like a mask on because he doesn't want blood in his face, because you don't want to get that in your mouth. And he's swinging at it, and then he kills it, and that's his first kill. And so then he takes them back to his house, and he starts explaining that Lori and Carl are still alive because he noticed that all their photos, like framed photos and photo albums, are gone because, like, why would you... Because Morgan was trying to explain, like, it could have been looters, and he was like, why would looters take, like, our photos? That has no survival value whatsoever. And so, yeah, that. And so he's like, they're alive, and I gotta go find them. And Morgan's like, well, they're probably in Atlanta, because that's where, like, the safe zone is in Atlanta, Georgia. And so they go back to the police station so they can get some, like, guns and ammo. And Rick, gets his cop clothes, and he looks all nice. And they have a shower, and it's all nice because the place has a generator. And then they're getting ready to leave, and Morgan's like, I'm not going to leave with you yet because I got some stuff I gotta do, and I want to teach Dwayne how to shoot. And so they stay behind while Rick leaves to go find his family. And then Morgan's staying behind because he wants to put his wife down before he leaves, but he can't do it, and he starts crying. And it's really sad because his wife was so beautiful. Like, you see pictures of her before she died, and she's just like a model. And Rick, where does it end? Rick's driving. Oh God, there's so much more. I'm almost at half an hour, and there's still so much more. I'm so sorry, Kevin. Like, this isn't short at all. Okay, so Rick's driving, and he stops by this little farmhouse, and he's like, hello, can I borrow some gas? I don't know why I would say borrow, because it's not like you're going to give it back. You just ask for it. And so he's walking around, and he looks in he tries to open the door, but he can't, so he's looking through the windows, and there's two bodies. There's one on the floor with their, brains blown out, and one in a chair with the brains blown out. And whoever shot the person first before they killed themselves, they wrote on the wall in blood, God forgive us, which I thought was like, wow, that's, wow. And so Rick kind of backs away, checks the car, and there's no keys. Well, the truck that's there at the farm, and then he sees a horse, and he's like, aha. And so he goes to get the horse, and he's going to ride that to Atlanta, so he does. And then this is, like, probably the most iconic scene in the whole series, because it ends up, like, everywhere, like posters and the cover for the Season 1 DVD and t-shirts. And it's a faraway shot of Rick on the horse on a highway walking towards Atlanta, and there's, like, deserted cars all over here, and then the buildings are all just decrepit, and yeah. And so, he goes into Atlanta, and it's pretty desolate, and there's tanks turned over, and bodies everywhere, and just carnage, and just, like, deserted ghost town. And there's a couple of walkers, they get up, and they're moving around, but, they're not that big of a deal, and Rick's like, nothing we can't outrun. And so he's on his little horse, and they're running, and then he hears something, and he sees a helicopter in the sky, like, alive, but not like earlier, that was turned over on the ground. It's flying. And so he's like, oh my god, I gotta follow it. And so, giddy up, and he's on the horse, and the horse is running, and it's going down the street, like, this way, and then all of a sudden, it turns a corner, and there's just, like, thousands of walkers, like the whole fucking city is right there on this one street. And they all turn to see him, and they're like, hey! And so they start running after him, and so he turns on the horse and runs back the other way, but then more come from this way, and they just surround him, and he's turning around like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? And then so he's like trapped, and like he falls off the horse, and they just start tearing the horse, and they're pulling the horse's guts out, and intestines and stomach and everything, and the like still laugh while they're eating it. And then